Hi, my name is Louis van Niekerk, and this is a vlogging series to try and take you along the journey of what it took for me to become or not become a paragliding pilot. So I'm starting a bit late, probably 3 episodes late. So I'm going to record 3 separate episodes. Don't think that I'm trying to fool you if you see that I'm pretty much doing this all on the same day. The reason for that is that I am a little bit down that path, but not that far that I don't think that one can not make a nice series out of this. So let me start with episode 1. In the first instance, I have always driven past these floating paragliders along the south coast of South Africa, the garden route around Sedgefield, Wilderness, and I've seen these paragliders just hanging in the air and seemingly having a blissful time. And I've always wanted to do that. So my wife decided about 2 years ago to buy me a voucher to go and tandem paraglide with one of the schools here locally in Cape Town. And that was around July, and I felt that I wanted to do it in summer, perhaps when the wind conditions are better. And so we postponed, and by February 2020 we made an arrangement to go and do that. We were all psyched up, arrived, and then they said to us the conditions had changed and it's not so ideal, so we should rather come at another stage. And then of course COVID-19 hit, all the lockdown procedures, everything that went with that. Long story short, we are now at the beginning of 2021, and yesterday was Saturday, a week ago. Let's try and think, what would it have been, the 23rd, I went for my tandem ride. And I've got to say, I was rather apprehensive. I was being a little bit skittish and cautious by nature, not necessarily afraid, but I always want to understand and manage risk and know exactly what I'm getting myself into. I never want surprises. Don't like living on the edge. And so I was a little bit scared the morning before the tandem ride. Not so much that I didn't want to do it. And I've got to say, my pilot, as we walked up Lion's Head, those of you that know the area, made this very simple remark saying, we take calculated risks, which is a theme that resonates with me. And the reason why I mention that is because the whole idea of becoming a pilot myself is all about understanding and managing a degree of risk. And that's the journey, has been the journey for me. So for the rest of this episode, I'm really just going to show you some of the videos and how incredible it was. It was absolutely fantastic, and a wonderful feeling of freedom. Being in the air, being so close to nature on the one hand, even though you're so far from the ground. But it's different sitting in an aeroplane and looking out over Camps Bay and Table Mountain. It is very, very different. Flying over Lion's Head at an altitude of 50 meters from the ground, not 50 meters from sea level. And then eventually coming into land and floating over the rocks in Camps Bay and seeing the beach, and you being at such a lowish altitude. It is remarkably different. It is the closest thing I think you can come to flying like a bird. So enjoy these videos, and I'll see you in the next episode. So I decided to give you a bit of running commentary. Here they've got me strapped in, and I am deeply uncomfortable by pushing my arms back, and I'm apprehensive that if I'm not comfortable going into the air, things will be a problem. I'm making small talk about YouTube channels and 10 million subscribers, which we clearly don't have. But watch the pilot. He's watching the conditions. He's watching the conditions that I've subsequently learned. He's checking for wind. He's checking sure the wing is right. There he gives the nod. He pulls up the wing and he tells me, go. Now I am not even remotely prepared, not even closely. In fact, I was deeply surprised at this point that we're in the air, and it was just so simple. But it's a good pilot who knows what he's doing. I ask him here, why is he taking off to the right? And his answer is that the wind is perpendicular to the slope, and it took me a while to really understand what he's saying. It isn't perpendicular as in, coming off the surface. It means the direction from which the wind comes is hitting the slope dead on, right, at a 90-degree angle. And that means that draft will fly up the slopes, and that'll give you the lift which we are now riding. So he's now going to go up and down the slope to use the lift that comes from that wind that is hitting the slope perpendicular. At some point he then gives me the brakes and allows me to steer the glider. Of course, my emotions at this point is like, at the one hand, a little bit underwhelmed in that the launch was so easy. I'm astonished by how close we are to the ground, for that matter, if you look carefully at the material. And we remain that close, but systematically Marcus the pilot keeps turning and using that upward draft to get us height, so that we can, as he explains later, get over a pocket of turbulent air between where we are and where our landing site is. And of course I've paid for this, so he needs to give me a bit of airtime, and that's one way of giving me airtime. I'm of course the photographer, and I've completely forgotten at this point that I wanted to take all sorts of strange and funny angles. He eventually took over the GoPro from me and did that. Took some nice pictures, and at the same time gave me the sticks so that I could fly a bit, obviously in a safe and confined way. Perhaps you too are starting to consider to be a pilot, and this is a journey you have to go through. So maybe subscribe and hit the bell to be notified when I post new stuff, and you can go on this journey with me. You never know, we might become pilots at the same time.
Lovely, thank you. That's wonderful, thank you.
So Marcus is testing me a bit here. He's about to go into a bit of a playful swings and roundabouts, and my stomach jumps into my throat. But he's testing, how resilient I am, because he knows he has to be considerate about the experience of his passenger, and yet try and make it as eventful and fun as possible. So that was a precursor to what was to come a bit later. So here Marcus has now given me the brakes. You'll see I am effectively controlling the paraglider, and he's taking a variety of snapshots, some of which I've already shown in this video. It's just giving me a feel, and I am of course deeply excited to first-hand experience what it feels to pilot this thing. We made a couple of turns, and then I gave back the controls to him. So this is a bit later, and Marcus has sort of warned me that we might be pulling a bit of G's, but I have to admit I've been in small fixed-wing planes, I've been in helicopters, never in my life ever felt this amount of G's. You'll see that I at first just experienced the G's, but then it gets a bit more hectic, and it keeps going, and it's that keep going that is so a little bit I wouldn't say stressful. It isn't scary, it's just different. It's a very new and very different experience, because if you think of a pendulum, you're now swinging out underneath the canopy, and your stomach wants to climb out your toes, and that experience of G's was quite new. It's obviously a technique he used here to lose some altitude, by our estimation between 50 and 70 meters. We're coming into land,
and this is obviously a technique, but having tested me, he now knew that he could push that a little bit with me to give us a faster descent, and also to give me a bit of a thrill.